People want to know where their food comes from. I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't grow up around agriculture.
Farmers is the main part of the whole story because that's where it all starts. It all starts in the field. Welcome to the Ag Creators Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Zach Hefty. Jack's also joining us. We are ag content creators, and we are hoping to bring to you some tips today on how to get into content creation if you're a farmer. And the whole point of this podcast is to connect consumers to farmers. This is the first episode, so let's jump right into it. We're going to start out with a little introduction. My name's Zach Hefty. I'm a crop farmer from South Dakota, but I also do content creation with Ag PhD and a number of other media and social media. And the other host of this show is Jack. So Jack, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jack, and I am in college. I'm down in Mississippi. I'm from Alabama, and I'm a photographer. And so I travel between different farms and take pictures, and my main goal is just to tell farmers stories.
So basically what got started in agriculture for me is my dad and uncle have always been on the farm. They had row crop farm, so we have corn, soybeans, and now we have alfalfa. But then they also do Ag PhD, which they've done for the past 27 years, which is awesome. And Ag PhD basically just helps educate farmers on more agronomy and just things to help them on the farm. And so they've taught me a lot about agriculture, and it just kind of got me loving ag in general, just all sides of it. And so kind of what this podcast will do for the viewer or for the listener is just connecting the consumer to farmers. So whether you're going to the grocery store to buy milk or apples, or you're getting gas and you're getting ethanol, we're just connecting what farmers are going through, making all these commodities and connecting it to you, to the consumer, and to us as consumers, and just seeing the process from start to finish. And that's kind of why I'm super excited for this podcast. So, Jack, why did you get into agriculture? Because you're not from an ag background.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a unique background. I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't grow up around agriculture. And so both of my parents have jobs outside of ag. And I got involved in ag probably in high school. And early on in high school, I started taking pictures at a couple farms around town, when they were spraying wheat or, during summer when they're harvesting wheat. I'd go out there and take pictures, and it kind of, right place, right time. And I got connected with a couple other farmers and ag companies, and it kind of just slowly built on each other. And now I travel between 4 or 5 states getting pictures. And so I haven't been in the ag industry long, 5 or 6 years. I'm a junior in college at Mississippi State, and on the weekends I travel between farms taking pictures. And so what started as, oh, this is neat, driving down the road seeing tractors, has kind of now grown into something that I'm going to do when I graduate, working for myself. And so it's really fun. I'm excited about this podcast. There's a big need for, people want to know where their food comes from. And there's a lot of podcasts out there educating farmers, but we kind of want to go about it a little differently and teach people where their food comes from. And so not necessarily, what nutrients your soybean plant needs at a different growth stage, but regular, consumers who go to the grocery store, we want to show you where your food comes from, and we want to connect you to the farm. Because there's a lot of great stories in ag, but there's, on the news you'll hear stuff and, about farmers, and we kind of want to help bridge that gap and show you what actually, goes on the farm across, 50 states.
Yeah, and it's not just, oh, this is not for farmers. No, it's for farmers too, because farmers is the main part of the whole story, because that's where it all starts. It all starts in the field. And so we call ourselves content creators. We create content for social media. And so this podcast, Ag Creators Podcast, it's talking to farmers and to non-farmers about different ways that farmers are growing their produce, and about how it matters as a consumer, because a lot more people are wondering about where their food's coming from. And so we want to come and show them what it's really like on the farm and what it actually takes to grow a produce or to grow food for cattle and stuff like that and how it all works. So since this is the first episode, since we're content creators, I wanted to get a little bit into content creation, Jack. So what makes content creation so important in the ag industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming important in every industry, and in ag especially because not everybody people want to know where their food comes from, but they might not have access to a farm, or they might not be able to see what goes on a farm. And if you aren't in an ag family, you know, growing up, I didn't know what happened on a farm until I started taking pictures and kind of got on different farms, and so content creation, taking pictures, video, drone stuff, whatever it may be, it's so cool to use that as a channel to get and tell farmer stories because everybody has social media. Everybody has a phone that you can, people scroll Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it may be. And content creation is kind of that how we bridge that gap. And so, it's a great way to advertise, it's a great way to tell stories and to get a message across. And so I'm excited to use that and also, have content creators on throughout the ag industry and tell their story because there's plenty of them out there that are doing their part to tell farmer stories, whether you're in North Dakota or Maine or wherever it may be, all across the country, people are telling farmer stories. And so I'm excited to kind of try and bring everybody together and talk about it.
Yeah, I find content creation so important in the ag industry because there's only 1 or maybe 2% of people that are farmers. So there's not very many farmers out there, but yet everyone eats. So everyone is eating food that farmers are producing, but there's not very many farmers to actually tell what's going on the farm. And maybe they're scared to do that, which I have a little story about being scared to post on social media. So when I was in college, I wanted to post on social media and do all of that. And my senior year of high school, actually, before I got into college, I was creating some different content on social media, mainly TikTok. And when I got to college, I got made fun of for it. And so it's just one of those things that at the time you think, oh, there's people making fun of you or people seeing you in the wrong light. Well, if you're actually creating content that you enjoy making and that it's educational and is helping teach people that aren't farmers about farming, that's great. It's awesome to share on social media and it's really good. And even if you're going to hear a lot of feedback from different people, hopefully a lot of good feedback, but there's always going to be negative people out there. And it just don't let those people get into your head and think that, oh, I shouldn't be making content. If it's making you happy to make content, you should be doing that and you should be sharing about what's going on the farm. Maybe it's not on social media, but at least it's talking to your friends or your family about what's going on the farm and what's important, what's happening, what actually goes into creating food or growing your crops. It's awesome. People are really interested in that. There may be some people that are talking to you that may be negative about it and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that might not speak up, but they really want to hear about it too. So that's the whole point of telling your own story out there, talking about farming, talking about agriculture, because there's not very many people in ag, but yet it's such a big industry, such an influential industry out there. You want to tell your story, go tell it. It's awesome. All farmer stories deserve to be heard.
Well, and it's cool, the whole content creation piece is cool for farm families, because we talk about getting the word out there to people who aren't necessarily in ag, and that's a big goal of mine and yours, show where, people's food comes from, but also just within the ag industry, family farms, they like to say, they're proud of what they do. And it's cool to show, drone video of them, running 2 or 3 combines in a line that they've never seen it from the air. But when you show them, it makes them even prouder of what they do. And so it's cool to not only tell farmers stories, but also, it makes people proud and it makes, it shows, what you're doing is making an impact.
Yeah, it's hard work too. So there's a lot more work into agriculture than people that aren't in the industry don't fully understand. There's a lot more going on than just sitting in a tractor and pressing a button and it drives itself. There's a lot more to it. It's not just all easy, and there's ups and there's downs with farming. So there's a lot going on to it. So another thing about it is Jack, what, in your opinion, if you're a farmer, what would make you interested, or why should you be interested in sharing your story, creating content?
I think it's just, for the good of agriculture. I mean, you aren't necessarily selling a product like some businesses do that use social media. I mean, you aren't trying to sell your grain through social media, but you're just trying to, you know, paint a better picture for farmers. And it's hard to put a monetary value on that, but it's good for the whole industry. And the more over the last couple of years, more and more people have been sharing their story and getting that content out there, and it's just making people more aware of agriculture and painting a better picture. Because farmers always have had this stigma from the news, like, oh, you're polluting the environment, you're doing this and this, but in reality, you know they make money off the land, and so they aren't going to do something that harms the soil. And so it's really cool to show, to use social media and to paint a picture, to people who aren't on the farm every day, who may have never even stepped foot on a farm, to show them, oh, that farmer's really, trying to do right, and he's really, he cares for that farm. And so, there's not necessarily a monetary value for that, but you're trying to paint a better picture and put out those, good stories in ag, because there's so many good stories that, are just waiting to be told.
Yeah, they like to talk a lot about the bad stories on the news or different things like that, but there's a lot of good stories out there, and there's a lot better opinions than some that you might be hearing. There's a lot better things that are happening out there. There's a lot of misconceptions about agriculture, and so that's another thing as we go along. Episode 1 right now with this podcast, but in more episodes coming talking about more misconceptions in agriculture, because there's lots of them. Like, a common misconception is that drain tile is bad, and that's actually far from the truth. So drain tile does really well, especially in heavier ground, which is around our area. We have a lot of heavier ground. Drain tile is very important. It helps lower the water table. So it's not taking away the water. It's not draining your fields from water. It's just lowering the water table, so it allows more room for the roots to grow in your soil. And the water's going to be moving to you no matter what. So the water's moving underground. Now it's just coming out slower through a drain tile pipe, and it's coming out more controlled, and it's filtered water. Water that comes out through drain tile is incredibly clean. It's filtered through soil, which is a natural filter. It's awesome. There's so many good benefits about tile. Could talk about it for a long time. My dad's very passionate about drain tile, but that's one of the misconceptions in agriculture. And it's all about telling the actual story, not spreading a rumor about things that aren't true. It's talking about what actually is true.
Well, there's, granted, like, rumors, and these misconceptions will spread, but the only thing to keep, the only way to get real information is from on the farm. And Zach is way more experienced on the farm than me. I've, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've learned a lot. But our goal is to get people from each industry or each aspect of the ag industry, whether that be, soybean and corn, or, somebody who grows apples, or somebody who sells, seed, or, a tractor company, or whatever it may be, all these different aspects, and bring them all together. And so you can hear from each side. Because, I don't know enough about any of these to be able to, have a podcast and just talk about it. But we can get somebody who does know something and bring that to the podcast. And that's what I'm excited for, is getting to hear all these different people and all these stories from the ag industry, from all walks of life, whether, on the farm, or whether you're, on the sales side of things, and hearing all their stories.
Well, Jack, let's get some actionable tips here. So if you want to get into content creation, let's start it off right. What are some top tips? What's one tip that, if you're starting social media, if you're starting content creation from scratch, what's a top tip for someone getting into this?
I would say the number one thing, and you'll hear this a lot, is quality over quantity. And obviously that goes into what equipment that you get, and, if you get a drone or a camera or whatever it may be. But, post what is going on. And I'm not saying quality as in get a $5,000 camera, but you can do just as much with your phone. And so, I mean, if you're filling up a seed tender or something, pull out your phone and start videoing. There's so much stuff that happens on the farm, and I've learned this in just in the last year. We get caught up in, oh, we have a camera, we have a drone, like let's use that, and they have a time and place, but also just having your phone when you're in the cab of a tractor doing something, or if you're filling up a fertilizer tank, and just showing what's going on with your phone, like a selfie video. It might not be 4K, but at the same time, it's high quality educational. You're showing them what's going on a farm, and that's the end goal. You're trying to show people what goes on the farm, and you can't have your phone's in your pocket all the time. Mine's a foot away from me right now, and so it's use what you have, but you also just have to look at the opportunities. When you're doing something, think, oh, this would be, it might be super boring for you, but somebody would like to hear what's going on, who's never been on a farm before.
Yeah, so number one for me, you can use your phone. Use whatever equipment that you have to start. It's pretty easy. You already have a phone, so that's nice. Number two is not worrying about not if you've never done it before, not worrying that you don't know what you're doing, because everyone doesn't know what they're doing when they start. It's just all about starting. And so number three, I wanted you to talk about, Jack, is just what you can do to get onto someone's farm. Maybe if you're not in agriculture, is there any tips on that end too? So if you are on a farm, you're starting out maybe with your phone or something like that. Maybe you want to get a drone, and then just posting things that are real and posting things that are things that you find enjoyable, because that's always a key. But then it's also, what if you're not in agriculture and you want to talk to farmers about things that are going on? How do you start that process?
Yeah, that can be really daunting. I didn't grow up on a farm, and so I didn't know any farmers, and it's daunting to go, oh, I'll just drive up to the shop and just, hey, can I take pictures? And so, early on, I started driving around, and if I saw a tractor, I'd pull over and take pictures. And there were sometimes farmers, all of them were okay with it, and I've met a lot of people through that. And I was taking pictures one day, and he said, hey, hop in the cab, and I just rode with him. I had never met the dude, and so sure, it can be daunting to think, oh, I don't know any farmers, but they want to meet you, and they think it's cool, there's so many people out there who put a blame on farmers for doing, this, that, or the other. And so when people come out there and show an interest in farming, they think that's neat, and they want to help you. Go out and meet farmers, go to meetings that, throughout the town that, farmers are at, or go to events that farmers are at, because they want, when you tell them what you're trying to do, they want to help you, and they want to help get the story of ag out there.
Yeah, I just find it very interesting how awesome different stories are from different farmers, and every farmer does things differently, and so you learn something new from every single farmer you talk to. And every single year is a different year in agriculture, and that's why it's so much fun to film and talk about it, because you never know what's going to actually happen out there. So there's always things that are negative that happen. You never know, like could be a hailstorm, could be some sort of disease that comes into your field, or you could have the opposite end where it's a drought year, or we get a lot of rain, and there's just different things that happen every single year. And so that's why it's really fun for me to document that kind of stuff. And it's also fun to look back on, if you're thinking, oh, I don't really know if I want to post stuff, but I wouldn't mind recording something. Well, it's super fun to look back on different things that you saw throughout the year, and just the year. I mean, 10 years from now, you're going to be like, I'm so thankful that I recorded that and talked about that, because it's educational, it's truthful, it's what's actually happening on the farm. And it's not like you're trying to bash anyone or anything. You're just kind of talking about what your day-to-day is on the farm, just showing it off a little bit.
Well, and that's what people want to see, what's going on the farm. It doesn't have to be recorded with a fancy camera, it doesn't have to be scripted, just what's going on the farm. People like to see that. And even I like to see that. And I get to travel between farms, most weeks, but it's still cool to see what's going on between, even for me and Zach, it's, where I don't even know how far of a drive it is between us, but it's so different in the equipment that's used, the crops that are planted, the processes, how we fertilize and how we plant is going to be different. And so it's pretty cool to see the difference between all that. And that's kind of our goal with this, is to bring in all these people and to tell their story, but also to show how diverse ag is, because it's different, 2 hours away, and it's very different 12 hours away, when you're looking at farms.
Yeah, we're going to have some cool people that are going to be joining us in the future, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to be able to talk about kind of where they're from, how they record content if they're a content creator, and what different crops they are talking about normally or producing in their area, and different things about it. Like Jack is in an area that produces cotton. So what's something interesting you learned just from making content that you learned about cotton?
Yeah, so cotton and I'm going to bring in rice too. Cotton, Zach came down and we got to see cotton harvest and film that. And there's also rice. And so both of those, like you hear corn and you hear beans, and how they come into our lives with, different, like ethanol, for example, and how we use them. But it's really cool for cotton. Everybody wears cotton. Everybody has, blue jeans or, cotton sheets. And so it's cool to see how that connects. And with rice as well, we all like to eat rice. And so it's cool to see how, from farm to where, when you eat it, it all started on the farm. And cotton is such a cool crop, in terms of, and farmers might not think this, but like cotton obviously takes a lot more work. But it's cool for me to see, corn you plant and you fertilize and all that. But cotton, they have to apply different growth regulators and all sorts of stuff throughout the season that they're putting on via, sprayer. And that's, I don't know, that's neat to me. It's cool to see the management in cotton. It's a lot more intense than, let's say, corn or soybeans or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot different stuff about cotton. Cotton has a lot of stuff going on. But you'll see as we go through different podcasts and stuff like that, you'll see these different areas that we're going to be able to travel and be able to talk about with different people. Like we could have someone from down south where they're actually growing cotton, talking about spraying a bunch, taking it off the field, bringing it to the cotton gin, and then turning that into your shirts or your blue jeans and stuff like that. That's kind of what this podcast will be. It'll be talking about the content creators and talking about the consumers and how we reach the farmer.
And we're excited to, obviously we want to have all these different people on, but we're going to do this every 2 weeks. Me and Zach have been talking about something like this for a long time. And so we're excited to kind of bring it to fruition. And so be on the lookout. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And so look us up on all those platforms. It's the Ag Creator Podcast. And we appreciate y'all listening. And so y'all stay tuned for the next episode.